What? What? Ho, 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 everybody. Look at the date. Look at the date. It's almost Christmas. I'm being festive. Anyways, yes. Happy early holidays, everybody. Did I say Christmas earlier? I don't mean to offend anybody. December 23rd is the date, and before you put your footy pajamas on, before you tiptoe downstairs to go get the presents or yell at your uncle or whatever for molesting you. Okay. Before you bake cookies for Santa, before you do all of that, before you enjoy all the festivities, what better way is there to get prepared for the holidays, to get your gears grinding before to inject cinnamon right into your asshole, than to listen to some dumb American talking to you about a London-based wrestling promotion? You know what? Actually, I take that back because, first of all, if you haven't listened to my first few episodes on Progress Wrestling, I strongly suggest you give them a gander. Give them a gander means look, right? I guess that doesn't really apply to an audio medium. I guess you could look at it, but you probably listen to it too to get the full value of it. I had a intro to Progress episode that I released a few months ago, as well as an episode on chapters 5 and 6, and an episode on chapters 7 through 8. Some good introduction to a lot of the characters there, and a lot of the storylines that are getting set up, and some good matches that happen, and some bad matches too. So really enjoyed doing those episodes, kind of my intro to Progress. For those who do not know, I've never watched any Progress, and I've kind of tried to keep myself in the dark as far as like what happens in the future, although I know a few things here and there and some guys that came through. But for the most part, this is my first run through of the whole thing, and finally, I got some help. So this episode, Chapter 9, I have the boys from Wrestling Should Be Fun, a podcast that's available on all podcast platforms, and you can follow them on Twitter as well, at WSBFun. Also, check out their website, WrestlingShouldBeFun.com. I will put all of that info in the description as well, so definitely check these guys out. I had a blast doing this episode with them. Didn't know a lot about them until, I stumbled upon them on Twitter. They have a great podcast, really good follow on Twitter as well. And having them on, although there are a few mic issues here and there, which I may or may not leave in just because it's fucking hilarious to me. Man, these guys were fun to do this episode with, and kind of to hold my hand through, because I should mention, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, they are both from London, England, and I think both of them have actually seen Progress live a few times. One of them, I believe, lived at some point, just a few blocks from where they did this episode here, so definitely get some guys with some firsthand knowledge of the product and of just the UK wrestling scene in general. So it was fun to have them kind of get their insight on the whole thing in conjunction with my American nonsense, as usual. But man, Chapter 9, not to get into it too much before the episode, but this was a landmark show for Progress. So it was a good one to bring in some guys in that know so much about the product to kind of join me in on this episode, because a lot of big shit happens on this show and a lot of good wrestling as well. So we got a fun one here for you guys. Progress Chapter 9 with myself and Ross and Matt from the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast.
Everything brilliant.
All right, so I'm gonna start recording. And now, who's your favorite pedophile that you watch on the show?
Too many to choose from.
Yeah, I think it was Matt that I was speaking to earlier. God, just watching Progress now, because this show was in 2013.
Yeah,
and just knowing everything that happened since then, it's tough to watch a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, part one of this show was pretty unproblematic, but part two heavy with the pedophiles.
Heavy.
I was saying to Hard Ross that I think that a lot of it we're both discussing that we can kind of compartmentalize, but the James Davis stuff really stuck out. Because I don't think I've watched a show with him on until going back and watching this and just been like, it's a bit weird. I mean, he wasn't obviously in a match, but absolute nonce fest.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, if I can watch Chris Benoit matches, I can watch any of these guys wrestle.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn right.
Yeah.
I would say what Chris Benoit did was slightly worse.
Well, I go one step further. I watched a Jimmy Savile match the other day. That was pretty fun. Sorry, that's
Who is that?
UK reference there, Hard. He's a notorious UK paedophile that had like a 1970s Brit rest career. But yeah. So anyway, go on.
And he was knighted.
He was. Yeah. We will knight fucking anyone.
We are 90 seconds in, and this is already the most British fucking podcast I've ever heard. Which I like it, though, because I've done a few episodes on Progress. I don't know if you guys have. I know, Matt, you said you listened to a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's literally just been me, a stupid American, talking about British indie wrestling. It's like, Islington, where the fuck is that? Is that in China?
Well, it's actually good segue into. So the crazy thing about this show is I moved to Islington 3 weeks before this show.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, literally the garage, not garage as you guys pronounce it. The garage is So I was probably 4 or 5 minutes walk from there, and lived there for a couple of years. And even beforehand, my now wife lived that neck of the woods. So I think the first time I kind of came across Progress was just walking through like the main street which it's on, and just seeing like a bunch of people in wrestling shirts stood outside a venue. I think it must have been probably about chapter 4, and then being like, what the fuck is this? But and just it was like one of these things that I kept meaning like, I'll get tickets for the next show, and it took me about 5 years to actually finally get around and do it. So yeah, there you go.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I know on commentary they mentioned that this show sold out in like less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So even though it's still very early on in their tenure, it's already a very popular, they got a huge following behind them, which is awesome. So you probably went to a bunch of the shows then, huh? After you said 5 years, after you figured it out. Well, I guess.
When was your first one, Matt?
My it was in the 70s, so it was not probably too long before Wembley, maybe a couple of shows before Wembley, I think.
Okay.
Well, you were pretty early, weren't you?
Yeah, mine was 13.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you guys are familiar with, I mean, I guess, because that's kind of a question I have, because I've kind of tried to stay in the dark as far as like where Progress ended up becoming. I know certain things. I know a bunch of guys that ended up passing through there. I know like a lot of the British Strong Style guys were there, and Matt Riddle, I think, too, and a bunch of those guys. But I try to stay, spoiler free as much as I can. In watching Chapter 9, which I'm assuming you guys did, do you think it's pretty like representative of what Progress still is, or do you think Progress has changed since then a lot?
From my point of view, Progress, when I first started going, was such a great mixture of stand-up comedy, rock and roll gig, getting pissed with your mates, and I think the getting pissed with your mates is the only thing that really stayed true, which was absolutely fabulous. And it's the thing that I miss the most about this COVID world that we live in. We go to shows in sometimes groups as big as like 15, 16, and we absolutely have the best time. Right. But it used to be just absolutely raucous because British wrestling in 2013-14 was on its knees, and then it had this huge resurgence, and then we actually got a bit spoiled, to be honest, with the amount of wrestling shows that we were able to go to. Like these Progress shows used to be like 2-3 months, and then you'd be like super excited for them. It would come around 2-3 months at a time. And then you'd know exactly what the storyline is. And then because it got so popular, then they were booking more and more matches with more and more bigger roster. And they've kind of lost their way a little bit in terms of the tight storyline narrative of it. which is something that straight away I noticed when I turned on the VOD and watched this show earlier this week, where straight away they went into the narrative of the Styx versus Crews match, which is something that we'll talk about later. And I know that Matt's keen to rip apart, but I'm keen to tell you that I really enjoyed it. But that's the thing that I think Progress lost. It lost
their identity
a little bit, but it was just more the fact that it got too big for its boots, and it was impossible to control. Plus, you add into the fact that these guys were then thrust upon NXT UK, and they had kind of two cakes to eat at the same time, and they took their eye off the ball a little bit, maybe, which is understandable. But yeah, that's
NXT
kind
UK.
Of,
NXT UK plus other, WX. I mean, I don't know if they're geographically even close, but like WXW, OTT, so many other British promotions. I'm sure a bunch I haven't even heard of. And I feel like you said, the British wrestling scene was on its knees in the early 2010s, mid 2000s, but then it just got a shot in the arm whenever it was. Yeah, and they went from having nothing to having everything within a matter of months, years.
Yeah. And it was amazing to be there for it. Honestly, it was so good just to see see these guys, like how we watched these guys in Chapter 9. I know you see a lot of them either on WWE TV or NXT UK or Ring of Honor or whatever it might be. So many of them have gone on to good and great things, and we got to see the progression of all those wrestlers from budding weekend warriors that had jobs in midweek, and then would go out and wrestle on the weekends, to becoming professional wrestlers. And it was amazing.
I think you've got to do a shot, Ross, every time you say progress or progression outside of it.
I wasn't going to say anything. I wanted to beat you down for it, but I was going to let it slide because I've done it myself a few times already.
I think for me, who kind of came to at least going to live shows later with Progress, I think probably for the first time, me and Ross discussing wrestling, I'm going to take a more positive view than he does, because it's very much usually the other way around. But what I found interesting about watching this show was how parts of it reminded me of the Progress kind of I knew from kind of, I guess, more modern Progress, but part of it did, and we'll probably get to it when we talk about Styx and Crews, did remind me of the dark days of BritRest, which is probably the era of BritRest that I'm more familiar with. I was going to shows in like the mid 2000s up in Yorkshire, where a couple of promotions were running there, and it was the absolute dark days. And the early Progress shows, I think, still have a hangover of that. There are matches there which you could have seen in 1PW in Doncaster in 2006 and 2007, but I don't think that now going to a Progress show you see any of that. Which is, so if you're a bit of a work rate geek like me, I think those like modern Progress works a lot better. But if you kind of like the carnival spirit and the bit of the mixed cards like Ross does, I can see why he's nostalgic of the early days, because I don't think you really get that anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's interesting because I don't know how familiar you guys with Ring of Honor.
Very, very, very familiar.
So I see some parallels between Progress and Ring of Honor in that, because I'm watching the very early ROH shows, like from the very beginning. And I was watching Ring of Honor. I caught onto it live, like in the late 2000s, mid 2000s. And I'm watching these shows in 2002. I was like, man, this is nothing like what I remember Ring of Honor was.
Yeah.
And obviously it's still in their early stages, a lot of growing pains, as with any company shows. But it's interesting how parallel these two companies are, even though they're on different continents, and that Ring of Honor took a while to kind of find their identity too. And they also reached a point where I think they got too big for themselves, much like Progress did. Because once Ring of Honor starting to get TV deals, and just like Progress, a lot of guys getting absorbed by WWE. I mean, look at WWE now; it's filled with guys that were built on Progress and Ring of Honor, like literally. And it's so funny to see how like all these indie companies kind of fall into that same trap sometimes. But so we might as well just dive right into the show, because I know you guys are very eager to talk about Styx. And so I think one of you brought up in the. I just wanted to bring this up because it was so funny to me. So the opening like video package, I guess, is building up this match between Nathan Cruz and Styx. And the basic backstory for everybody listening is that Nathan Cruz is kind of like the sports entertainer guy. He's the pro wrestler, and he's claims to hate indie wrestling, which is why he started a stable called Screw Indie Wrestling. It's very on the nose, but it's like a back and forth promo in the beginning. Nathan Cruz recorded himself, Styx recorded himself, and it's so funny because Nathan Cruz is kind of illustrating himself as like he's too big for indie wrestling and stuff. So he has like a really good quality camera that he's talking to and a good mic. But then when Styx is cutting his promo, it's literally on like a 2002 flip phone camera. I don't know if that was by design, but I loved how perfectly that kind of fell into itself. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not.
Yeah, massively. I mean, the whole Styx promo for me did kind of come out something like the dying days of Brit Res. This whole kind of guy just being like, "Oh, you'll criticize my family. Oh, I'm doing this for the kids in the back," and you like, and also the cadence is just so forced, and it's like, it made me genuinely cringe. Cruz wasn't much better, but
no way. I'm not having that. Cruz is great. Cruz is a great promo.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. I think he's heads and tails above everybody else as far as promos go, at least at this point.
He's one of the best promos from Hull. All right, I'll give him that.
he's the best promo in Humberside. But I will absolutely say this, right? So like Nathan Cruz epitomizes to me the wrestlers that I love, the wrestlers who you truly believe what they're saying. And I think it's because this character of I'm a pro wrestler, screw indie wrestling, is genuinely what Nathan Cruz thinks about wrestling. He we'll go into it later with the promo that he cuts pre-match, but like the stuff that he talks about, which is really on the nose of like Andrews isn't on this show because he's paid for his own flights to go to America, so he's undercut me because he's got that gig because he paid for his own flights and I won't pay for it because I'm a pro. Like that sort of shit I absolutely love. And yes, it irks people, and yes, like it is putting himself on a pedestal, blah blah blah, and people hate him for it, but it works, and that's what you want from a heel. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it so much.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because, like you said, Nathan Cruz, the things he was saying, both in the promo in the beginning and before his match, it felt like he believed it. And I think with any promo for any company and any wrestler in any company, if you believe in what you're saying at least a little bit, I feel like it comes across through the TV screen. And yeah, like you said, Nathan Cruz, he's just a good talker, but also this storyline they got going on, it seems like something that's kind of rooted in something he actually feels, which, you know, if you don't like Nathan Cruz, I personally thought his tights were a little too small. But but that being said, I still thought Nathan Cruz has a really good character going on, especially at this point. At least at the beginning of the show, this was my thought because there's somebody else that, you know, has some more character progression, but we'll get into that. But Nathan Cruz is like a much higher above everybody else as far as character work goes at this point.
Yeah, and what we'll say about Styx's promo, the one time that I truly did dig what he was saying and was like, yeah, I truly do think this, is when he got really angry because he couldn't get his jacket off. I believe that.
I've been there.
You can have that, Ross.
I've popped my shoulder out before because I ripped my jacket off too fast.
Yikes.
And boy, you feel like a goose when you do that.
I can imagine.
But we'll get to Styx in a little bit. Just you got to hold off on the Styx talk. We'll get more into it. But we have the opening match here. Dave Mastiff versus Tommy End, a.k.a. Aleister Black. Man, I did not know he was part of Progress so early on. Just with much less tattoos and kind of a different haircut, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember him from that early, actually. Yeah, I for some reason I thought he was a bit later as well, like in the 20s. I didn't realize he was in single figures.
Yeah, and apparently he was a last-minute substitution. I guess Jimmy Havoc was scheduled to face Dave Mastiff, but Jimmy Havoc got injured the night before, so very last-minute replacement was Tommy End. And I think that worked out for the better, both for this match and for a segment later on. But yeah, Mastiff versus Tommy End, obviously both guys that are involved with WWE nowadays, so it's really interesting to see kind of their early work kind of before they found themselves a little bit. I know Dave Mastiff has finally grown a beard. It was so
he looks so much better with the beard.
Like the first few chapters, he had a clean face, and it was very uncomfortable to watch. I don't know why that it is. And then Tommy End, much more bare skinned, I guess, less tattoos. That's kind of a weird thing to say. But the match itself was very good. It was kind of short, and I felt like they have like they were saving themselves for more rematches in the end. But definitely a really good opener. Like I said, these guys are still kind of evolving as performers, and I was especially with Tommy End. I've noticed that he's added so many more facets to his game nowadays. Like he still has the kicks at this point and all that stuff, and obviously still very similar build and everything. But I feel like he's just added a lot more weapons, a lot more knees, like more Muay Thai influences and more kind of lucha influences nowadays. But still a very good match, very hard hitting. I did notice he hit the Black Mass in this match, but I feel like it wasn't his finisher at this point because it was just a 2 count. The end of the match comes when Dave Mastiff goes for the cannonball in the corner. But then Tommy N sits up, kicks Mastiff in the face, and then hits him with a double stomp off the top rope for the win. Barely, because Mastiff kicked out. He did the old Hulk Hogan kick out at 3.1. But yeah, really good match here to start. What do you guys think?
I'll start with this one, Matt, if that's right.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So I've got a few pointers that I had from watching the match. The first one was it reminded me of the first time that I took my wife and my sister-in-law to a wrestling show, and Dave Mastiff was the first wrestler that came out. And those pants that he was wearing that just say "bastard" on the back of it.
It's good, right?
My sister-in-law was like, "Where can I buy those pants?" I was like, "I'm not sure that is part of the merch store." you
gotta go to like a hardware store. I think it's what you cover your car with.
But go into the actual match. It was very much exactly what Progress sold you on it, with the British strong style, like the like match itself. Great hard hitting action. I absolutely loved the fact that they also mixed that in with a little bit of carny kind of British wrestling as well. They had the classic British Bulldog 30-second suplex slam where the crowd count them down.
I saw that a few times on this show.
We were still buzzing for the British Bulldog in 2013. And I also noticed as well, talking about the old school Butlin style carny wrestling. Did you notice that Tommy End used the classic kind of hand clap to get the crowd going?
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Imagine Aleister Black now on Raw, just like getting the hand clap going.
No.
For someone that's been watching like wrestling on the British scene since like 2001 or whatever, like just seeing that just warms my heart. Like for a guy from the US watching this, it must be one of those things that are like, "What are you doing, mate?" But like
good-natured Aleister Black is always funny to see.
yeah. Which I absolutely loved, and I also absolutely loved that Jim Smallman noticed that the attitude in ring for Dave Mastiff can be a little bit naughty, which popped me big. But yeah, I also noticed that at the end as well, Tommy End got the kind of "please come back" chant. Which was nice, and like it was classic kind of British 250 people in a venue, kind of like where one person starts it and then 2 or 3 people, and then it becomes a lot like everyone just joins in. But then
Ricochet got that a few chapters ago too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then, but at the end, Tommy End kind of like tries to do that whole like baby face, like, yeah, I'm really feeling the like love from the crowd, and then goes to shake Dave Mastiff's hand, and he just completely pie-faced him and walked out the ring.
He is a bit naughty. You were warned that he was a bit naughty. You just didn't listen to him.
So yeah, those are my notes. But I really enjoyed it. Short and to the point.
Right. What do you think, Matt?
My main talking point from it is Dave Mastiff's running crossbody is the sexiest thing in the world. I've seen him use it before, but in that match, I don't know if it's the way Black took it or whatever, but it was just a thing of absolute beauty. Where I rewound it and watched it about 5 times. I think I'm gonna gif it just to get myself to sleep. It was just so beautiful. But yeah, no, I think apart from getting a semi on about Dave Mastiff's crossbody, I don't think I've probably got much more to add than Ross. I think it was a cracking little opener, really, and nice to see Aleister Black in his wannabe CM Punk era time.
Right, yeah, he just looked like an angsty teenager, especially in his promo pic. Also, I adore the idea that you have notes for this match and your one bullet is Dave Mastiff's sexy crossbody.
Yeah, that's it.
That's really is the main takeaway. Yeah.
Much gif later.
What does Big E say? Big men slapping meat.
Yeah, that very much.
But speaking about big men slapping meat, it's not really what this next match is. But Eddie Dennis versus Paul Robinson, and this is the semifinals of the Natural Progression Tournament. And for anybody listening who's unaware, this is a tournament that they started like a year ago at this point, and it's basically a bunch of up and coming guys, giving them a tournament to kind of have some stakes to their matches, and the winner of the tournament gets a Progress title match sometime down the line, and the finals will be on the next chapter. Mark Andrews at this point is already in the finals, so now we have Paul Robinson and Eddie Dennis fighting to see who will face him. I did not know Paul Robinson before I started watching Progress, but I'm already falling in love with this dude. I hope he's not one of the speaking out guys, but I choose not to know.
I've got some bad news for you.
Oh no!
I'm afraid I got some bad news.
Go ahead and tell me before I put this guy over.
I don't know. He was definitely on. I mean, there are a lot of Chris Jericho-esque lists going about when they're Ross, and he was definitely on one of them.
Right. Is this weird though? Because people will associate everybody with the same thing when, but what Ligero did was different than somebody like Tyler Bate, who I forget what he did, but I know it was something very minor. Maybe I had that wrong, but there's just varying degrees of abuse. But
yeah, I am fairly certain that he's lower down on the totem pole. So praise away.
Praise away. Well, I'll edit it in post if he's touching little boys like James Davis was. But yes, solid match here. It was, again, a kind of a quicker match. But I like that it allowed, first of all, I loved in the beginning. So for anyone that's not aware, Paul Robinson and Eddie Dennis, when they're standing next to each other, they look like they're completely different species. I mean, you forget how big Eddie Dennis is sometimes because he's such a lanky fuck, but he's a big boy. And he was able, because Paul Robinson's also pretty small, so Eddie Dennis was able to just throw him around for the whole match using his power advantage. A lot of chain wrestling too, which is fun considering the size discrepancy. I think at one point Paul Robinson just balls up, they said Johnny Saint used to do that, I guess, where he just lays in the middle of the ring and ties himself, kind of what Sonata's Paradise Lock is, but he did it to himself. But then, the match gets underway and it's pretty good. Like I said, a lot of Paul Robinson flying around and Eddie Dennis catching him and slamming him. But towards the end of the match, Paul Robinson knocks Eddie Dennis off the top rope and then hits him with the shooting star press and gets the win, which is funny because I didn't realize this at the time, but I was reading up on this show earlier today. And it's a funny note because Mark Andrews' finisher is the shooting star press. So I guess there might have been some subtleties, maybe not so subtleties.
Some foreshadowing. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, so really good shit. And Paul Robinson gets the win over Eddie Dennis. And a pretty fun match for me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it was solid. I think compared to some of the other matches on the card, it didn't quite live up to it. I think my biggest issue with the match was the pacing a little bit towards the end. So the finish just kind of came out of nowhere. There didn't seem to be a crowd swell for it. It's you hit the move and it's the match is done. I don't know if that's the guy's fault or if it's just kind of how it fell. The only other, I guess, comment from it is, again, I know that you didn't want too many spoilers hard, but just so you know, Eddie Dennis's gear never gets good. It's probably slightly better now than it was then, but it's still really bad gear.
I watch him in NXT UK, and I can I can imagine.
He's always had terrible gear. Like
He looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah,
nowadays.
Yeah. His hair's a little bit better now, but yeah, just such bad gear. But yeah, it's
Couldn't
also
get
I think there's stuff I want to say about Paul Robinson as well, but it gets too much into the spoiler territory, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
Is there good things in his future or bad things in his future?
Good things, I'd say, but yeah. Me and him have a little bit of beef, but he's yeah.
Oh yeah, no, go do tell. I'll mind a little bit of spoilers.
He's got it with everyone. I heckle him a lot, but he called me. I think my second Progress show, he shouted, "Come on, have a go, you four-eyed cunt," to me. So, like, yeah, love a bit of rock. But he has it for everyone. He'll kick off with 80-year-old men in the crowd and stuff. He absolutely loves it. But
I mean, I yelled at my girlfriend all the time, so it's fine.
But yeah, you've got a lot of interesting Paul Robinson-based developments to enjoy in the future.
I look forward to it. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, I absolutely love this match. It's so different to a Paul Robinson match that you'll see these days. Without spoiling too much for you, but Paul Robinson evolves incredibly from where he was here, where he's part of the Swords of Essex with Will Ospreay, and his moveset is kind of in the same vein as a Will Ospreay, and it changes quite dramatically. So it's quite fun seeing him go back to it, kind of 7 years later.
Was it like lose his legs or something?
He just kind of.
Yeah. Or is it like a AJ Styles kind of thing where he kind of tones down the high flying and gets more like ground based?
Like even more than that. Like I can't even, without spoiling too much for you. It's just a different human being, Matt, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different wrestler.
But yeah, this really worked for me because I love watching people like Cesaro when he wrestles up against like a lucha wrestler because he's such a good foil, and the size difference here was perfect for someone to work off of the base of Eddie Dennis, and some of the chemistry I thought was really, really good. There was only one minor botch in this match where there was one guy that did the ECW, you fucked up, and everyone else was just like, oh, fuck off, mate.
And Eddie Dennis was like, I didn't. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, Eddie.
But then they went straight back to the spot because that's what indie wrestlers do.
Gotta get your shit in.
Gotta get your shit in. And it was incredible. It was a move that I've never even seen before. It was like a tilt the wall backbreaker, but from like a reverse swing. Like it was incredible. And I also love the fact that they did the spot that Fabian Eichner does a lot in NXT where someone tries to do a blockbuster and he kind of catches him into a suplex. Yeah. That was really, really cool. And the Seven Bridge powerbomb looked absolutely horrific in that Progress ring. Yeah. I don't know if you guys watched that, but I winced watching that one. And the ref Chris Roberts made sure that Eddie Dennis gave Robbo a bit of time to blow wind on that one. But yeah, that was my main takeaway as well. You noted also that he won by the Shooting Star Press, which is a nice little nod to the fact that he's going to be wrestling Mandrews in the next chapter. And my only other note was that his entrance music was LL Cool J. I'm going to knock you out, which is
corny.
Which is corny as hell. And his music gets a lot better because it becomes Scroobius Pip, and it's one of the best entrances that Progress have got.
Yeah,
how does that go?
Oh god, it's like a rap song, but it's just amazing. It's a real slow build, and then it comes out with a really like tremendous chorus.
You're not gonna rap for me?
I'm not rapping for you, boy.
maybe next episode. Can't blow your load in the first episode we do together, I guess.
Absolutely. He's holding it up because he's going to review Cruise and Sticks in a full rap.
Oh, he's blue balling himself so he can just unload. But a match that I unloaded for was this next match: Ricochet versus Zack Saber Jr. versus Mark Haskins. Man, can you guys imagine seeing this match like a few years later?
Yeah.
I mean, it was still very good here, but it's just crazy. I'm not too familiar with where Mark Haskins went from here. Hopefully, I don't know. I feel like you guys have more horror stories for me. But yeah, this match here, this triple threat match, kind of a random match. All these guys have been pretty prominent so far up to this point. Ricochet debuted in a world title match against Ligero. Zack Saber Jr. has been, pretty back and forth from Japan. Has had some stuff with like Marty Scurll teaming with him and facing him. And Mark Haskins debuted recently, joining the Screw Indie Wrestling stable with Nathan Cruz and Rampage Brown. So essentially, this felt kind of like a number one contenders match to me, even though they never mentioned it. Don't know where they went from here, but that's kind of how it felt, because it felt like all these guys kind of had some momentum behind them. But a funny deal that they do here is the Screw Indie Wrestling guys, I guess Jim Smallman was on the mic, the announcer, owner, whatever you want to call him. In the beginning of the match, before the match, he's like, I received an email saying that I'm not allowed to introduce members of Screw Indie Wrestling. And then Mark Haskins grabs the mic, but the crowd boos him so loud that you can't even hear him, which is amazing. A lot of the "Who are ya?" chants, like you guys do, right?
Yeah,
yeah, y'all love it. Y'all love that shit. And I was kind of confused at the banter in the beginning. Mark Haskins yells at Zack Saber. I believe it was, "You sat on a man's lap, you faggot bitch." Do I have that right?
There's some pretty. That's a black blotch on this match. That there's some stuff on there. You're like, oh my god.
Hey.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's how you guys do it over there or what, but that was rough ski.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
So 7 years ago, but you forget how fast things change, I guess.
Parental discretion is advised.
But yeah, man. So I think we all take Ricochet a little bit for granted nowadays, because a lot of the stuff he was doing in this match kind of seems routine now in 2020, because it's stuff we see like in every match that he has. But the crowd was popping really hard for all this stuff, like when he will head scissor a guy, then nip up, and then drop kick him. Like that feels like something we see every week from him. But the crowd was like, "Oh my, holy shit, mate!"
Yeah,
you guys.
But it's just the speed that he does it at, isn't it? Like,
absolutely
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so smooth, and it looked like he was having fun out there, which, like, I don't want to say he's like lost a passion or anything, but he just seemed like he was looser in 2013 than he is nowadays. Yeah,
I think he's definitely a wrestler that really suffers in the COVID era, because he's someone that feeds off that crowd noise, isn't he?
For sure. But yeah, this triple threat match, man. If anybody listening, if you're going to watch one match from the show, I would watch this one, because it was a barn burner. A lot of innovative stuff, especially for the time. Double submissions, other kind of double team style moves. There was one point where Mark Haskins had Ricochet in like a head scissor, like with his legs. And then Zach came and put Haskins in a single leg crab, and it almost looked like human centipede a little bit. Which I could not see it once I thought of that. But the finish of this match comes after a decently long match, really high paced, high energy match. The finish comes when Mark Haskins hits Ricochet with a pump handle driver, or made in Japan for any of my New Japan fans. And as he's pinning him, Zack Saber Jr. comes and gives Mark Haskins the PK, and that gives Zack the win. So Zack Saber Jr. gets the win here over these guys, and yeah, just an awesome match. What do you guys think?
So for me, this is your classic indie dream match. It's the sort of match that Rev Pro would easily have booked around this time.
Yeah.
And worked in that style as well, where it's not really storyline led, but I will say that Mark Haskins gave this match something real different, because he was your kind of heat magnet in this match, and it allowed the other two to kind of breathe a bit. He was doing the classic kind of holding the ropes to cheat and calling people faggots and
the usual
doing low blows and whatnot. So that was quite cool, because a lot of these triple threats, sometimes they are just kind of like three dudes doing moves. and he gave it a kind of a different dynamic, which I enjoyed. I also have to mention that there was a really awful bit where someone just said, "Go back to the Caribbean." I think it was aimed at Ricochet, and it was like, what?
Yeah, I couldn't tell because Smallman on commentary mentioned that he thought it was directed towards Haskins because of how tan he was.
Well,
who knows?
That's a reach, isn't it? That is a reach.
Might have just been him doing damage control.
Yeah, absolutely. To be like, my promotion didn't have that happen, but that sucked, and that took me away from it a bit. But then almost immediately, Ricochet did this submission move that I've never seen previously. Have you guys seen it? It was like a cattle mutilation, but whilst he's cut on Saber's back.
I think I know what you're talking about. I forget exactly what it was, but I do remember seeing it and be like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, it's just something that you'd never see Ricochet do now. Like it was really really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, just an incredible match. Like it absolutely flew by. I'm not sure how long it was actually, but it felt like it was only 5 minutes long. It was unbelievable. The speed of it was unbelievable, and as you say, the crowd ate it up 100%. And at the end, there was a standing ovation. The one thing that I didn't like too much was the fact that Ricochet, even though he lost the match, he took he went on the ropes and celebrated at the end as if he'd won the match, and then his music played.
He won in the hearts of the fans, I guess. That's all that matters.
Yeah, so that's my main takeaway.
I think my notes are pretty similar, actually. I just thought Haskins in his role as spoiler was fantastic. There's so many of these triple threat matches, even when you've got a de facto heel in indie wrestling, particularly British indie wrestling, where they basically just wrestle the same. And Haskins, obviously, by the time of the finishing stretch, he was pulling out all the big gun moves and fine, but definitely for the first half, tripping Ricochet to stop him doing his flips and stuff. I thought it was, he was for me, and I'm a big Saber fanboy, but I thought Haskins was the highlight of this for me. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a perfect addition because you have Ricochet and Zack as the work rate, quote unquote, guys, and you have Haskins, like you said, Matt, the spoiler. And the match just felt like it was a triple threat match because sometimes 3-way, 4-ways can just feel like a series of singles matches. But this one felt like everybody was not working together, but kind of involved in the same system of moves, which I thought was really cool to watch. But so I was debating on whether I would even cover this part or not, but given what happens later, I feel like we have to. There's a raffle next.
Yes, Britain. How good is Britain?
Is that what you guys do?
We just love a raffle.
You guys fucking love a raffle. And a pint, right? A cheeky pint.
And we love raffles mostly out of Carlsberg pint boxes.
So this is during intermission. It's a fucking raffle. I'm not going to go beat for beat on the raffle, but they pull Jimmy Havoc, who apparently is in the crowd. He has a fucking beer in his hand. He gets in the ring because, as I mentioned earlier, he was injured the night before, so he wasn't able to wrestle on this show. But they pull him in here, hey, Jimmy, why don't you get in here, get some spotlight, pull a ticket out of the box, and we'll give some cunts some prizes. And then, you guys rubbing off on me. And then, so Jimmy Havoc, he's in there. He's just sipping his beer. It's whatever. Don't really think much of it. Honestly, the winner that gets picked, his name is Christian, and there was a one more match.
Yeah, that was so good.
After.
So good.
That was one of the biggest pops I had watching this whole show. But just keep that in mind for later in the show. Jimmy Havoc, raffle, Christian, cunts. So next match, Nathan Cruz versus Styx. Who was the one that had all the venom built up for this match?
I think that was me.
That'll be Matt.
Yeah, it's just one of these matches where, for a start, the whole crowd brawling thing just didn't work, and it's just the pacing of the match and everything about it. It just reminds me of the main events of shit shows that I used to go see in Yorkshire, which is eight years before this match, and it's like I don't know. I think it sticks out as a sore thumb for Progress, which I think of as it says on the tin, progress. You know, it's moving past this kind of trying to be a kind of a WWE no DQ main event, and on God, and Cruz calling Styx Paul. That was the other thing that killed me. Like, people using people's real names in wrestling should be kept. Even if it has to happen, it should be kept.
I like
kept
it
to the absolute minimum. And the absolute minimum is not Nathan Cruz versus Styx. So, like,
you didn't think it was worth it? I think we might have lost you, Matt.
He's too angry.
Yeah, he walked away. Okay, there he is.
Yeah, I just had a Styx-based panic attack, but I'm back.
It happens. It happens.
But yeah, so as you can tell, I wasn't really up on this match. But Ross, who loves absolutely everything, I'm sure thought it was a 6-star classic, right?
And he's a well-known Styx mark, is Ross.
Styx
Bloody love Styx. Styx stars. Yeah, so I'm completely in disagreement with Matt here. I absolutely loved the 3-way that finished part 1. I absolutely loved the raffle. And then we got treated.
Match of the night was the raffle.
And then we got treated to Cruz versus Styx, which is something that is entirely different to anything else that has been on the card. It's a different beat. And yeah, it was slow. And yeah, it was brawling, which neither the people at the venue or on VOD could see what was going on, which is a major problem. But there was so much stuff going on here. Right, so Nathan Cruz is such a well-rounded character that he comes out wearing a feather boa for no apparent reason.
It's good shit. It's such good shit, pal.
Then he goes on to basically tell Paul that if he wrestles this match supporting indie wrestling, then he's letting down his unborn child. How good heat is that?
So good.
Then he goes on to complain about the fact that Mark Andrews isn't on this show because he's paid for his own flights to go to wrestle in America, which undercuts everyone on the card, including Nathan Cruz. Nathan Cruz thinks in his mind that he would have had that gig, that someone in America, whether it be Ring of Honor or someone else smaller, would have been on the phone to Nathan Cruz with his feather boa thinking, yeah, I'm going to fly this guy out to America to wrestle this match. And then he name drops PN News as someone who gave him great advice. Matt, why aren't you enjoying this? And then whilst he's then basically going on this kind of high moral crusade about how much he knows about the wrestling business, why he should be in charge of the wrestling business, and everyone else needs to fall in line. Whilst he's doing that, and Paul is in the other corner listening to him, he cheap shots him. This is great heel work. This is absolutely great heel work. And then you get all the outside brawling. Nothing much happens, but you do get a great little bit where Styx gets a little bit of blood from a ring post or something, maybe from the brawling outside. And then there's blood on the knuckles of Nathan Cruz. He gets himself onto the apron so people can see him, shows people the blood that he's drawn from Styx's head, and then says, "This is on you." How good is Nathan Cruz? And
it is good, yeah.
Like, I just feel like it's entirely different to anything else on the card. I really enjoyed just watching him work. And I actually felt that Styx's selling in this match was actually really, really good. And then when it was his time to have his comeback, I don't know if you guys were still watching this match or if you were bored by this point, but I was still watching it. And Styx hit a spear that was equal to Goldberg on Nunzio. It was so good. That
was a great spear. I remember that, yeah. Amazing
spear. And then you get a little bit of back and forth and a tap out loss for Cruz. So after all that bullshit that he was saying about how great he is, how much better than everyone else is, then you watch the heel tap out. For me, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in between a little bit. But first of all, Ross, you were shitting on his boa. I'll have none of that. You didn't like his boa. Did you like his boa or did you not like his boa?
I just didn't know why he was wearing it.
I'm one click away from kicking you out of this room. He's trying to be like a Hulk Hogan. kind of guy. I'm the WWE guy. So what do WWE guys wear? Boas. And sunglasses. In 2013, yeah, all the wrestlers are wearing boas over there.
I don't think I can name actually a WWE guy now who doesn't wear a boa. I think they all do.
It's really bizarre seeing Roman Reigns come out in a boa, but I mean, it's like, whatever, guys.
Isn't there
Americans.
There's an NXT wrestler called Boa, isn't there?
That's close.
Isn't he the Chinese?
Funny enough, though, no boas on him.
No boas.
Yeah, that's what he's missing.
0 boas on boa.
Just welts.
Yeah.
Boa Dallas is also close.
Oh no. Okay, I can't even rebound from that. But yeah, this match is like, first of all, the promo in the beginning, like I believe it was Ross, you were saying how much you loved it, and I loved it too. And it was just, you could see how the crowd was like sucked into it, because especially early on in Progress, the crowd can be very heckly a lot of times, but they were all dead quiet listening to every word he was saying. So I think that speaks to how well he carries himself and how at least a little bit invested everybody was in what was going on here. But then the match gets underway, and like it's very like the Attitude Era was like this too, right? You get all these Stone Cold and Triple H matches. They always end up in the crowd. They always fight up there in the concession stand and all that shit for like the first 15 minutes. And I feel like that's kind of what they were trying to harken back to here. But the difference between WWF in 2000 and Progress in 2013 is that Progress in 2013 doesn't have fucking lights out there for some goddamn reason. And so nobody could see, like you guys are saying, nobody could see anything. I couldn't see anything. The people fucking right there couldn't see anything. And just not a lot of substance to what was going on out there. It almost felt like they were kind of trying to take up time, maybe.
Yeah.
And then once they got back to the ring, it was fine, but it kind of felt like an out of nowhere finish. Like Styx hits that boss man slam and then puts him in the Tequila Sunrise with like an arm trap, which looked good.
Yeah, it does look good.
And Cruz had to verbally submit, which I like the added touch. Like he trapped his arm so he couldn't tap out.
Yeah.
And then Styx gets the win here, but it's almost like it seems like they're building, because Styx beat Haskins the last show.
Yeah, so we've just got Rampage to beat, right?
Yeah, but it feels like Cruz should be the final boss, so to speak. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that? I know Rampage is the champion, so it makes sense. But it feels like Cruz just has like the leader presence to him.
True.
Yeah, and that's where the feud is as well. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah. But I didn't absolutely hate it, but I did tune out for pretty much all of the in the crowd stuff. But yeah, otherwise not too bad. But after that, transition into something a little different. We have a 6-man tag team match. T-Bone and Project Ego versus the Bangra Knights and Grado. A lot of comedy in this. I don't even know how to even approach this match. A lot of comedy in this match. I mean, if anybody that knows Grado knows, which by the way, whatever the fuck happened to Grado? Do you guys know?
Is he a bus driver now?
Probably.
I think he's a bus driver in Glasgow. Have I made that up?
There was a recent advertisement for Glasgow buses, yeah, and he fronted it.
Oh, maybe he's an actor for a bus company. That's it.
Man, people got tired of Grado fast, huh?
Such
he
a
went to
shame.
TNA and
Such a shame.
I don't know, did you guys like him? Did you guys like his shtick?
Loved it.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of comedy in this match, and I like comedy, especially if it's in moderation, which it was. I mean, last match you get a serious one-on-one match, and now you get a bunch of silliness, which is fine. I understand how it's structured within the show. It's fine. But kind of tuned out of this match a little bit, at least in the beginning. I did love the double ethnic submission onto Project Ego. The ethnic. So it's RJ Singh, who is he Indian? Do I have that right? I don't want to just guess, but something of that ilk, right? I'm assuming based on his last name. But he's in everybody in the WWF. For anybody that doesn't get the fucking joke, everybody that's in the WWF who is at least a little bit brown does a camel clutch for a finisher. So that's kind of what RJ's thing is. alluding to there. And then at some point, so they have the double ethnic submission on Project Ego, who are Martin Kirby and Chris Travis. They hold on to the submission too long after they reach the ropes, so they get disqualified. But what do they have in their pocket? A race card. And everybody listening, like, hey, what do you mean they played a race card? You mean like metaphorically? They had cards that said race card in their trunks. I think they pulled it out of. So
I think it was actually in his bum bag.
His what?
The Grado bum bag.
His bum bag?
Oh, I think do Americans call it something strange. Is it a fanny pack?
Fanny.
Oh,
I guess.
okay. Right,
you know what? Fair enough. Fanny pack isn't much better. So yeah, match gets restarted, and then Grado and T-Bone start going at each other, which is hilarious because this whole dynamic of the match, like everybody in this match is kind of being funny, but then you have T-Bone there who's just like this serious, this big tattooed stoic guy. He's like, I will have none of this comedy bollocks, I think is what he says. And so him and Grado are like polar opposites, and they're going at it in the ring. And the whole match, Grado is trying to body slam T-Bone, which is tough because T-Bone is a big lad, as you guys like to say. And he tries all throughout the match, and he finally slams T-Bone. He's all excited. He's dancing. He's doing this stupid shit with his arms. And then Chris Travis from Project Ego rolls up Grado from behind and gets the quick victory out of nowhere. So the heels win, the baby faces lose, and then, a lot of shenanigans in this match. What did you guys think of it?
For me, I think I always just get really nostalgic watching Project Ego. I remember I watched them on my favorite Brit Rest match before Progress started was there was a show in 1PW show in Sheffield in probably around 2008, I guess. I might be out by a year or so. But it was a ridiculous card. It had like El Generico versus Jerry Lynn, Corey Graves for Doug Williams. It was like Nigel McGuinness was on the card. Johnny Saint fought Colt Cabana, and I think the main event was Danny Burch versus Abyss from TNA. But with all that stuff going on, the best match by a mile was Project Ego, who maybe had been going a year at that point max, versus Dragon Isu, who's like a jobbing Northeast wrestler, a bit of a journeyman, and then with Kevin Thorne, who was Mordecai, and they just had this tornado like mental tag match, like no DQ. And it was also, what I liked about it is they came out with denim jeans with knee pads over the top, which is like the best look for a hardcore match. And yeah, they did one of these like brawl in the crowd kind of things, which actually worked because the venue was big enough that you could see it. And from then, I always like Kirby and Travis. I always had a bit of a thing for. So yeah, watching this match, I thought they did incredibly. But I think it's just because I'm naturally just super high on them. But yeah, it was So it's.
He got too excited. He ripped his mic out again.
He ripped his mic out again.
Yeah. Right. One second. I'm actually going to drop my mic completely. Guys, you go on. I'm going to see if I can find another way to work this.
All right. So where were we at? So Grado wins. No, Grado loses. Poor Grado. That's right. We were just shitting on Grado. I think is what we were doing.
You were.
But yes, after this match, so the heels win and they kind of just scurry out of there. The baby faces are in the ring. Jim Smallman gets in the ring. He's doing the whole let's give it up for these guys little deal. And then as they're all in the ring, who gets in there? It's the London Riots, god damn it. London Riots barge the ring, which the previous chapter was supposed to be quote unquote their last contracted match. So they kind of like storm in there with like hoodies and all this shit, even though everybody knows it's him. They beat up everybody. They beat up Grado and RJ Singh, Daryl Allen, all those guys. And Jim Smallman, I think they even beat him up a little bit. But then Jimmy Havoc gets in the ring with his bright pink chair. Even though his knee's injured a little bit, he still gets in there and runs off the Riots. And Jim Smallman gets back up, grabs the mic, and he's like, "Hey, mate, I don't want you guys in here. You guys stay out of Prague," or whatever he said. And then as he's about to pick up his hat, he bends over to pick up his hat, And then bam, Jimmy Havoc, Seth Rollins's Jim Smallman, hits him right in the back with a chair and continues to bludgeon him with the chair and grabs a cricket bat just in case we were confused if it was in the UK or not. Grabs a cricket bat and beats up Jim Smallman with it and beats up everybody else. And the London Riots get back involved and start beating up everybody else that's on the outside. And then Jimmy Havoc, who at this point has been like the top guy, basically. He's the guy, he hasn't won a match at this point, but he's like the sympathetic babyface. He's a deathmatch guy at this point, but he's looking to prove that he's more of a technical wrestler, or that he has those skills that he hasn't been able to showcase. And so Jimmy Havoc grabs the mic, and that's basically some of the reasoning behind him attacking Jim Smallman, who is the owner, by the way. And I came to Progress to show that I'm more than just a deathmatch wrestler. And what do? You just put me in death matches. I'm not a mascot. You're all cunts, and all the stuff he said. And then he was like, yeah, I fucked my knee up last night. And your first thought was, who can I get to replace you? Like, and it was a lot of good shit from Jimmy Havoc here. The crowd is throwing trash in the ring. There's people crying ringside. I think even Havoc threatens to slit somebody's throat at some point.
He does, yeah.
So a bit much. But yeah, crazy angle here. I'm surprised this didn't close the show, honestly. But yeah, what do you guys think of this huge angle here? Which I don't know too much about what unfolds after this, but I do know this is the start of something big for Progress.
Yeah, it's just incredible, right? I think it's the defining part of early Progress. For me, this is when Progress starts. I don't know if what Ross thinks of that, but yeah, just brilliant stuff.
Yeah, so for me, I absolutely 100% agree with Matt there in that this is the start of Progress. This is when Progress became not just a hot ticket and a little underground thing that some people were privy to and other people knew nothing about. As soon as this happened, you heard about it in the wrestling scene in Britain, in that this show had the most incredible heel turn in UK wrestling history for a long, long time, because this is the only company really that's been doing narrative-based wrestling in a long time, right, that people care about. And we spoke briefly about the raffle earlier, and that was a brilliant way of showing everyone that Jimmy Havoc was the lovable, likable guy, still came to the show, even though he's injured, wants to have a pint with the fans at the bar. He feels like he's one of you, and then he goes and does what he does here. And I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. I absolutely love the fact that the wife of Jim Smallman's ringside, you can see her genuine like shock and sadness and anger and all those emotions. You can see Glenn Joseph trying to get into the ring and London Riots kind of kicking him down and calling him names and spitting on him, blah, blah, blah. I absolutely loved it. I thought that it would... You mentioned that you felt that this should have closed the show, but I think that having this just after a comedy match was perfect, because the crowd were in this buzz of enjoying themselves, and the shock of this, and it's so jarring that it was perfect. And the atmosphere in the crowd is amazing. It completely makes it. Jimmy's promo work is amazing. He even goes as far as to say that he doesn't give a shit about Jim Smallman's mum and the fact that she's got MS. That they did the raffle for. Yeah, like everything is on the nose. Everything about it is perfect, and it's the start of something amazing in British wrestling.
Yeah, it's definitely like the first thing that really sucked me in, because I knew I had like partial knowledge that Jimmy Havoc turned heel at some point, but I didn't know like when that happened or like how it happened. So watching Jimmy Havoc all through the first couple chapters and then seeing him do this. I mean, it was definitely like you said, it's kind of where Progress feels like it's starting. It feels like it's more than just like a carnival show that people are just wrestling. It's because it's it's an episodic kind of promotion where there's running storylines all throughout. So yeah, I love the whole thing. After that, we have the main event of the show. The Progress Wrestling Championship is on the line. We have Rampage Brown, the champion, versus Doug Williams. And it was a really good match, too. But you made a good point earlier, Ross, about how it was such a jarring thing that happened with Jimmy Havoc after the comedy match, which is a good point. So I could see why they put it there. But also it kind of made the main event feel like there was kind of a weird atmosphere to it. I mean, for one, there's no commentary on it for obvious reasons, which kind of took away from it a little bit. But also Doug Williams is kind of he's not new to the scene. I mean, everybody knows who Doug Williams is. But as far as being in Progress, I think he's only appeared once thus far. So it was weird he was getting a title match here. But still really cool to see, especially in a 2020 lens. Because you have Rampage Brown, who's gone on to do such great things. And you have Doug Williams, who even at this point is a legend in the business. I think this is only like a few years before he retired. And funny, I watched an ROH show from 2002, like I was talking about earlier, and Doug Williams was in the main event there too. So wow. It's crazy the tenure and the breadth of stuff that this guy's done in his career in indie wrestling. And that kind of plays into the storyline, I guess, right? Kind of contradicts what I was saying earlier. So Rampage Brown is in screw indie wrestling, and Doug Williams is like the epitome of indie wrestling in the UK. So definitely a good dynamic there, and it made sense. And the match itself was really good. Kind of two big lads hitting each other with their sweaty meat. Kind of one of those kind of matches. Doug Williams bricks out the Chaos Theory, which is one of my favorites, but only gets a 2 count. Then he hits a flying knee off the top rope, only for a 2 count. But then Rampage Brown fights back and throws Doug like throat first into the second rope, and then hits the pile driver for the win, like almost out of nowhere. So this match was solid. I feel like it had another gear to it that they could have hit, but all in all, I enjoyed it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I've at the time I wasn't a big Rampage guy. I think it's only later where he's really grown on me. Now he reminds me a little bit of like those kind of 90s All Japan heavyweights. His style, and I think that's another reason why I think he's actually come out and said he's influenced by those guys, Jumbo Salutas and Stan Hansons and those guys, and yeah, just I really got into this match. I think again, I think if the crowd were into it, I think it'd have been 25% better. But considering the crowd were kind of a bit befuddled, I think the guys did particularly well, and I was really worried that screw wrestling would get involved too much. I think actually the biggest criticism of Rampage's career is that he's been involved in too many stables, but which kind of just mess up his matches. But I think he's I think he definitely delivered in this one. And Cruz got involved in a little bit, but he wasn't involved in the finish, which was nice.
Yeah, not too much.
Yeah, I thought it was a really solid main event. I do take you guys' point that the previous angle completely took people away from the match here. But I think that slowly but steadily they won them over, not least thanks to my man Nathan Cruz being a prick on the outside, getting them into the match. My main takeaways here was how over was the Chaos Theory. Anytime that he went for it, the crowd were just like, oh, I absolutely love it.
Even when he signaled for it with his hand.
Right.
My other big takeaway was the top rope knee drop that he and Finley and quite a few other, Dave Taylor, quite other like kind of quite big guys feel like they have to go to the top rope for one move a match, and they choose to do this knee drop that just looks like it's going to destroy your knees. I've got no idea why you would choose to do that move. There was no need to really do it, but yeah, that was something that scared me a little bit when I watched it. But yeah, great match for me. Two guys that have got massive respect from the crowd, and quite rightly. But my big takeaway here is that I've got an unpopular opinion in that I think Rampage Brown's NXT finisher is better than the pile driver because he never seemed to really hit it that well.
The pile driver? I thought it was decent.
Got a sick pile driver. That was very unpopular opinion.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it was like he hits it like if you were to walk up on somebody in the street and try to pile drive them. Like that's how he hits it. It almost felt like a realistic, if that even exists, a realistic pile driver. But yeah, that brings the show to a close. A lot of, when I asked you guys to be on this chapter, I didn't really know what happened on it. But I think after watching it was a good show to bring you guys on because there was a lot of good stuff that happened and a lot of stuff that was pretty monumental in the history of Progress. So overall, I mean, I feel like this is kind of a nostalgia watch for you guys, whereas it's like it's like very early in the journey for me. But what do you guys think of watching this show back overall?
Fantastic. Like, I think, again, because it's such a monumental show, and I, again, remember these kind of times of Progress have been a bit of a mix between, like I said at the start, the older kind of, older mid-noughties kind of Progress matches, and the more modern stuff. And I would say it's only really Cruise and Sticks that fell into the corner. So, yeah, as well as I thought it was just going to be all about the triple threat and the Havoc angle, but the whole show I thought really delivered.
Yeah, I've got not much to add to that really. Just my other point is just that I felt that it really hit the beats of what a great show can be. There was no point where you were like, oh, I've seen that already, or a match followed another match that felt the same. So yeah, in terms of booking, I think the three guys did a great job.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you guys once again for joining me on this. I know we had a few technical issues, but I think it ended up okay. Definitely a lot of fun with you guys. I'd love to have you guys on again sometime.
Be an absolute pleasure.
Once again, thank you to Ross and Matt from the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast for joining me on this journey. What a fucking fun show that was. Progress Chapter 9. As you heard, was a huge show and really lit a fire under the company going forward. So I really look forward to checking out the chapters going forward still. I mean, this fucking Progress just keeps getting better and better as I'm watching it, man. And the wrestling was always good, but man, the storylines are good now. And we're seeing some really big players kind of coming through, Aleister Black, as we just talked about. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg that we're at right here. So subscribe to follow me on this journey that I'm going on, because boy howdy, it's going to be a fun one. And yep, that is all the progress I got for you guys today. I won't progress on this outro to, sometimes jokes aren't funny when you force it. You know what I mean? I was trying to think of a progress pun. I do them every episode, right? You all love them too. I get a lot of good feedback on my progress puns, wordplay humor. But it just didn't really fit in here, I mean, I really should learn from that and try to progress on and get better. I'm sleepy. Let's finish the episode here. Thank you guys once again for watching. I'm 49 episodes in, and I don't know what kind of medium this is, apparently. Thank you guys once again for listening. I'm hard.